After skimming through the latest Nintendo Direct, I noticed that there was a distinct lack of Nintendo 3DS announcements. To be perfectly honest, that's not really a surprise. The 3DS is getting older, and developers, including Nintendo, are finding it more wise to invest time, and money for that matter, into a newer and growing platform. It's pretty clear that the 3DS's time is going to end, and if I may be so bold, I predict we won't see a replacement being announced. The Switch seems to be doing fine handling both handheld and home console duties for now, so that means the lineage of purely handheld systems from Nintendo is potentially coming to an end. From the first Game & Watch in 1980 to now, that's nearly 4 decades. Right now, there is only a handful of games that are supposed to come out for the 3DS, but instead of looking at those, I think it's better to look at what the Nintendo 3DS has given us since it was first released in 2011. So you can think of this video as a bit of a retrospective, but at the same time, I'm going to talk about how I think the console will be viewed by collectors in the coming years. In fact, I think the 3DS is going to be a decently popular system for collectors, especially ones looking for a good value. We've seen this with other consoles in the past. The GBA is a great example. Even though the Game Boy Advance, specifically the SP model, and even more specifically the backlit model, is more expensive than a Game Boy or Game Boy Color, most people will prefer the GBA instead. It can play almost all Game Boy games, and it has a lit screen. For most people who want to play Game Boy games on legit hardware, it's the most economical choice because you don't need to buy any of the previous systems. The 3DS is in a similar position. It can handle the DS and 3DS libraries, and combined with a GBA, you can play almost any game released on a handheld system, save for the Switch of course. With home consoles, the backwards compatible PS3 is similar, but the problem with it is that the premium you have to pay over a regular PS3 is sometimes more than just getting a PS2 and or PS1 separately. The first 2 PlayStations are pretty cheap. In terms of the 3DS, the question will be which 3DS is going to be the one to get. My guess is that the new 3DS XL will be the holy grail because it's the most fully featured one. The 2DS XL as well as the regular 3DS XL are probably going to be popular as well, probably will be a bit cheaper while at the same time not sacrificing too much in terms of features. The new 3DS might be a bit of a collective too, the normal sized one, not the XL. The interchangeable faceplates are pretty fun, and I can see people wanting to collect all the different kinds. And that feature is unique to that model too. Plus, I think it's also a bit rare since it was only on sale for a short while, if I remember correctly. I have no idea how the 2DS will be viewed by collectors years from now. It's the cheapest of the bunch, of course, because of its lack of 3D functionality and a hinge. Not to mention it's only got one speaker. Ugh. But at the same time, it might be a bit of a novelty because of how different it looks to any other system in the 3DS family. I also get a kick out of the fact that underneath the faceplate, it's just one big screen. So maybe it'll be like a GBA Micro, which command a bit of a premium just because of, I don't know, they're kind of cool. Because it helps illustrate how versatile the system is, let's just throw some numbers around. Overall, there are 6 different versions of the 3DS. That's more than any other Nintendo handheld. It also covers 2 Pokemon generations, Gen 6 and 7. If you count the DS backwards compatibility, that number increases to 4 generations. And if we throw in the Virtual Console, then that number becomes a whopping 6 generations. If Zelda's more your thing, then you won't be disappointed here because there's 11 or 12 games there, depending if you have a regular or a new 3DS with the faster processor. Not only are there games that are exclusive to the system, like Link Between Worlds, you also get to play all the 2D classics as well as the remasters of the N64 games. Of course, you can expect a similar situation with Mario games. The DS backwards compatibility and the Virtual Console just make this thing great for anyone who wants to play a lot of first-party Nintendo games from basically almost any era. Something you can't exactly say with the Switch at the moment. And now I want to talk about my journey with the Nintendo 3DS. I've got 2 myself, a regular 3DS as well as a limited edition Zelda 3DS XL. You may remember seeing a Zelda edition, a new 3DS XL in a past video, but that one belongs to a friend. I just borrowed it for the video. I bought my first 3DS during a Black Friday sale in 2012. I remember that time period pretty well because I was planning on starting this YouTube channel back then. I'm pretty sure I already made the account. People may think this is a flame red model, but it's not. This one's metallic red. ConsoleVariations.com lists this as a Japanese-only release, but that doesn't seem to be correct. The flame red 3DSs have a sort of gradient on the top where it gets dark at the front edge. and the bottom part of the system is a noticeably brighter shade of red compared to the rest of the system. And there's a silver trim piece around the cartridge slot. The metallic red console, which is what I have, is all the same color. I'm pretty sure you could only get this color in North America if you bought the Mario 3D Land bundle. Not sure if this thing is rare or not, but I don't think it's the most common model ever either. I even found the original flyer from 2012 advertising the bundle. This 3DS was a brilliant little companion for me. During that time, I spent a lot of time driving family members to various appointments. An almost uncountable amount of time was spent just sitting around in waiting rooms. The 3DS made that time so much more bearable. In fact, one of the first things I did was replace the stock battery with a high-capacity model from Nyko. Later on, I got this 3DS XL, and that became my main system, while the old 3DS was only used for trading Pokemon around. Another thing I had a great time with was all the travel accessories for some reason. In fact, I love this about handhelds. I've got a few cases here. This probably fake leather one is pretty handy. It holds 2 extra games and a stylus. XL models don't fit, and things get a bit too tight for the chunky battery. This one here is a bit bigger, offering enough space for XL models, as well as a slightly bigger battery. 8 games is plenty. And if you want to, you can also bring some twigs with you, apparently. This case is my favorite. This large case has even more space for games, and also a little place for your AR cards, and even an AC adapter or whatever else you want to shove in there. You can also take the case out of the case, but it can't hold the larger systems. And lastly, I have a Hardshell case for XL models. It's pretty sturdy, but it doesn't hold games well. I don't trust the little net here. Games would probably still be able to scratch the console, like the corners can kind of poke out. I remember buying this case on Walmart, and the cashier was just so awkward. He was just like, oh, this is a real sturdy case, and then, like, he knocks it with his fist a little bit, like, you know, I don't know, it was just such a weird conversation. In addition to the cases, I also have a few other ones for just games here and there. Like I said, for some reason, I really like all these travel accessories. It makes me feel really prepared and ready to bring my consoles anywhere. Even now, when I really haven't used this stuff in years. But anyways, the main point about this video is that I just wanted to talk about the Nintendo 3DS. I enjoyed it so much over the years. It saved me from boredom countless times. But that's the point of these. Gunpei Yokoi got the idea of the Game & Watch and later on Game Boy by seeing a businessman on a Shinkansen play around with a calculator out of boredom. So it only makes sense that the 3DS, along with all of its handheld brethren, would do just that. We'll see what the future holds for the 3DS. For me, I still want to finish Pokemon Sun before Gen 8 comes out, even though I'm not a huge fan of that generation. But I've already mentioned that enough on this channel. Afterwards, it'll probably go into the drawer while I play around with the Switch instead. But I'm sure I'll drag it out again in a few years, just like I do with all other old systems I have. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. This was a good excuse to just mention a few things I haven't done in the Time to Buy video from 2017. If you have any interesting, cool, wacky, whatever stories about 3DSs, just post them in the comments. I'm sure there's a lot of people who had some interesting memories attached to these devices. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.